I watched my 8-year-old son drop to his knees on that cold marble floor, his small hands trembling as he pulled off his favorite blue sweater, the one with the little rocket ship I had saved for months to buy him. He was using it to wipe the dirty shoes of the man who was supposed to be his uncle. The man was laughing. My parents were watching, and I knew in that moment that everything was about to change. But before I tell you what happened next, if you believe that family should lift you up, not tear you down, hit that like button. Subscribe if you want to hear more stories about standing up for yourself and your loved ones. Drop a comment below telling me what you would have done in my situation. Your support means everything. Let me take you back to where this all began. My name is Sarah, and for most of my life, I believed that being a good daughter meant swallowing your pride, accepting your place, and never making waves. I was the daughter who never quite measured up. My brother Victor was the golden child, the one who drove expensive cars, wore tailored suits, and never let anyone forget how successful he was. Meanwhile, I was a single mother working 2 jobs, living in a modest apartment, and raising the most beautiful boy in the world on my own. Leo came into my life when I was 23. After a relationship that fell apart before he was even born. His father wanted nothing to do with us, signed away his rights, and disappeared. So it was just Leo and me against the world. And honestly, I wouldn't have had it any other way. He was sensitive, artistic, incredibly smart for his age. While other kids his age were obsessed with video games, Leo would sit for hours drawing elaborate pictures of spaceships and distant planets. His teacher once told me he had a gift, that his imagination was something special. But gifts don't pay the bills. I worked as a receptionist at a dental office during the day and picked up shifts waitressing on weekends. Every penny I earned went toward making sure Leo had what he needed. New shoes when his old ones wore out, art supplies because drawing made him happy, a small birthday party with a homemade cake because I couldn't afford the fancy bakery one. We didn't have much, but we had each other. And Leo never complained. He was the kind of kid who would hug me tight after a long day and whisper that I was the best mom in the world. My parents, Martha and George, had a different perspective on my life. To them, I was a disappointment, a cautionary tale they could use to make Victor look even better. Every family gathering was an exercise in humiliation, but I kept going because part of me still hoped that maybe, just maybe, they would see me differently. Maybe they would see how hard I was trying. Maybe they would be proud of the amazing grandson they had. I should have known better. The pattern had been there for years, since we were children. Victor could do no wrong. When he crashed my father's car at 16, it was the other driver's fault. When he got caught cheating in college, my parents paid for a lawyer and the incident disappeared. When his first business venture failed and left several investors broke, my father bailed him out and called it a learning experience. Meanwhile, when I got a B instead of an A in high school, I was lectured for hours about wasting my potential. When I couldn't afford to go to the expensive university Victor attended, my mother told anyone who would listen that I simply wasn't ambitious enough to apply for scholarships. The inequality was so ingrained that I barely questioned it anymore. It was just the way things were. Victor was special. I was not. And I had accepted that narrative for so long that it had become part of my identity. It was a Sunday in late October when everything fell apart. My mother's call had been brief and commanding. Victor would be there. I needed to show up. The art fair Leo had been excited about for weeks. The art fair will still be there next year. Sarah, family comes first. Leo gripped my hand as we walked up the pristine driveway. Can we leave early? He whispered. I promised him ice cream on the way home. I should have promised him we wouldn't go at all. The moment we entered, the contrast was brutal. My mother wrapped Victor in an embrace while barely glancing our way. My father poured Victor expensive scotch and laughed at his jokes. When I cleared my throat, my mother waved dismissively in our direction without making eye contact. We sat on the edge of an antique sofa. Invisible. Victor talked about his latest real estate deal. $2 million here. $500,000 there. My parents devoured every word. I mentioned Leo's second-place finish in the art competition. My mother glanced at him. That's nice. Dear. Then back to Victor. Tell us about the new boat. The boat. Victor spent 20 minutes on yacht specifications and club memberships. My father refilled his glass. This is what success looks like. This is what happens when you don't settle for mediocrity. The jab hung in the air, aimed at me, though no one looked my way. Victor finally turned to us, his smirk sharp as broken glass. Well, if it isn't my dear sister and her little accident. Leo shrank against me. His name is Leo, I said quietly. Your nephew. Victor laughed. Right. The kid. How's that dead-end job treating you? Sarah still fetching coffee. My father chuckled. Your sister is doing the best she can with her limited abilities. My mother's gaze swept over us. You're late. And Leo's hair is a mess. Couldn't you have made him presentable? I had spent an hour that morning ironing Leo's shirt, combing his hair, helping him into shoes that pinched his feet. None of it mattered. Dinner was worse. We sat at the long table while Victor performed. Business deals, Bahamas vacation, investment portfolio. My parents hung on every syllable. When Leo mentioned winning his art contest, my father grunted and steered back to Victor's accomplishments. But something was different that night. Victor drank more than usual. His comments sharper. His laughter brittle. Glass after glass of wine. His eyes grew darker with each sip. I caught my parents exchanging glances. The kind that said they knew something I didn't. I wouldn't learn until later that Victor's empire was collapsing. Shaky loans. Failed deals. Circling creditors. The boat. The Mercedes. The expensive suit he wore that night. All of it was performance art. A desperate attempt to convince everyone, especially himself, that he wasn't drowning. But in that moment, I only saw my brother. Arrogant. Cruel. And turning his venom toward my 8-year-old son. You know what your problem is, Sarah, Victor said at one point, pointing his fork at me. You never had any ambition. You could have made something of yourself. But you took the easy way out. Got knocked up and decided to play the victim card for the rest of your life. Victor. That's enough, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. There's a child at the table. He laughed. The kid needs to learn how the real world works. Not everyone gets a participation trophy. Some people are winners and some people are losers. It's important he understands which category his mother falls into. My mother nodded approvingly. He has a point. Sarah, you coddle that boy too much. He needs to learn about hard work and success. And he's certainly not learning it from you. I looked at Leo. His face was red. His eyes were fixed on his plate, and I could see him fighting back tears. My heart was breaking, but I didn't know what to do. If I made a scene, I would be accused of being dramatic, of ruining family dinner, of being the problem. So I did what I always did. I stayed quiet and counted the minutes until we could leave. But then Victor knocked over his water glass. It wasn't an accident. I'm sure of it now. I saw his hand deliberately sweep across the table, sending the glass tumbling. The water spread across the white tablecloth and dripped onto his perfect Italian leather shoes. He jumped up with an exaggerated gasp, looking down at the water spots on the leather like they were bloodstains. Oh no, he said loudly. These are brand new. $3,000. $3,000, and now they're ruined. My mother rushed over with napkins. Oh, Victor. I'm so sorry. Here. Let me help. Victor waved her away. No. I know exactly who should fix this. He turned and looked directly at Leo. Hey, kid. Come here. Leo looked up, confused and frightened. Me? Yeah. You. Come here and clean this mess up. Clean my shoes. I started to stand, but my father's hand shot out and gripped my wrist. His fingers dug into my skin hard enough to leave marks. Let the boy handle it, he said firmly. He needs to learn responsibility. Victor. He's 8 years old. I protested, trying to pull my wrist free. I'll clean it. I don't want you to clean it, Victor said, his voice dripping with contempt. I want him to do it. He's been sitting there all night, eating our food, enjoying our hospitality. The least he can do is make himself useful. Leo slowly got up from his chair. His legs were shaking. Where's the towel? He asked in a small voice. What happened next will haunt me for the rest of my life. Victor reached into his pocket and pulled out his wallet, thick with cash. He threw it on the floor at Leo's feet, and several bills scattered across the marble. Here, use this to buy one. Oh wait, I forgot. You people don't have any money. Well then, I guess you'll have to use what you're wearing. I felt like I had been punched in the stomach. I started to move toward Leo, but my mother stepped in front of me, blocking my path. Her face was cold, devoid of any grandmotherly affection. Don't make this worse. Sarah, she hissed. Victor is teaching him a valuable lesson. The boy needs to understand respect and his place in this family. He needs to learn that not everyone is equal, and some people have to work harder to earn their keep. My father nodded from his seat, still gripping my wrist. Your brother is being generous, taking time out of his evening to teach your son about the real world. You should be grateful. This is the kind of lesson that builds character. God knows the boy needs it, with the example you're setting. I watched, frozen in horror, as Victor leaned down and pushed Leo's shoulder, forcing him to his knees. That's right. Down where you belong, Victor said, his voice thick with alcohol and malice. Now take off that ratty shirt and clean my shoes properly. You and your mother might be content living like trash, but when you're in the presence of your betters, you act accordingly. Leo was crying now, silent tears streaming down his face. With shaking hands, he pulled off his blue sweater, the rocket ship catching the light one last time before he pressed it against Victor's shoe. He scrubbed at the leather, his small body trembling with each motion, while Victor stood over him laughing. My mother and father watched with expressions of approval, like they were witnessing an important character-building moment rather than the psychological destruction of a child. The scene felt like it lasted hours. Though it was probably only a minute or two, Leo's tears fell onto the marble floor, mixing with the spilled water. His hands moved mechanically, robotically, scrubbing and scrubbing, as if he could somehow erase not just the water stains but his own existence, his own unworthiness. And that's when something broke inside me. It wasn't a snap or a crack. It was more like ice melting, or chains falling away. I saw my baby boy, the kindest, sweetest child in the world, on his knees being humiliated by the people who were supposed to love and protect him. And I realized that all my patience, all my tolerance, all my hope that things would get better had been nothing but a cruel joke I was playing on myself and on Leo. I moved without thinking. I yanked my wrist free from my father's grip so hard that I heard him grunt in surprise. I crossed the room, pulled Leo to his feet, and held him against me. His sweater was wet and dirty in his hands, and he was sobbing into my shoulder. I looked at Victor, at my mother, at my father, and I felt nothing but cold clarity. This isn't discipline, I said, my voice surprisingly steady. This is abuse. This is cruelty. And I will never, ever subject my son to it again. My father stood up, his face turning red. You don't get to make demands, young lady. You will sit down and you will teach that boy some manners. Don't you dare speak to me about manners. I shot back. Don't you dare lecture me about respect when you just sat there and watched your grandson be degraded for your entertainment. My mother's eyes narrowed. You're overreacting. Victor was just trying to help. You've always been too sensitive, too emotional. This is exactly why you've failed at everything in your life. You can't handle reality. Victor laughed. That same mocking sound that had haunted me my entire life. Go ahead. Run away. That's what you do best, isn't it? Run away from your responsibilities, from your failures, from anything that requires actual backbone. You're pathetic. You always have been, and you always will be. And that kid of yours is going to end up exactly the same way. I bent down and picked up the scattered bills from the floor. Every last one of them. Then I threw them back at Victor, watching them flutter around him like confetti. I don't want your money, I said quietly. I don't want anything from any of you. I took Leo's wet sweater and looked Victor directly in the eyes. You're going to regret this, I said quietly. All of you. From this moment on, Leo and I are done with this family. We will not be coming back. We will not be calling. And one day, when you need something from me, I will remember this night. I will remember what you did to my son. And I will make sure you understand exactly what it feels like to be powerless. Victor just laughed harder. What are you going to do? You're nobody. You have nothing. You are nothing. I took Leo's hand. We'll see, I said. Then I walked out of that house with my head high, even though inside I was shaking with rage and grief. The drive home was silent except for Leo's quiet crying. When we got back to our small apartment, I held him while he sobbed, his whole body shaking with the trauma of what he had experienced. He kept asking me what he had done wrong, why Uncle Victor hated him, why Grandma and Grandpa didn't love him. Each question was a knife to my heart, but I answered as honestly as I could. He hadn't done anything wrong. The problem wasn't with him. The problem was with people who chose cruelty over kindness, who measured worth in dollars instead of character. That night, after Leo finally fell asleep, I sat in the dark and made a promise to myself, and to him, I would never let anyone treat us that way again. More than that, I would make sure that Victor, Martha, and George understood the consequences of their actions. I didn't know how yet, but I knew it would happen. Some promises are too important to break. The weeks that followed were difficult. Leo's drawings changed. Instead of spaceships and planets, he drew dark, sad images, houses on fire, figures alone in the rain, small people being crushed by giant shadows. It became quieter, more withdrawn. He stopped raising his hand in class. His teacher called me, concerned about the sudden change in his behavior. I tried to explain without going into too many details. But the truth was that my son had learned a devastating lesson about how cruel the world could be, and I didn't know how to help him unlearn it. He started having nightmares. He would wake up screaming, crying about shoes and floors and people laughing at him. I would hold him and rock him back to sleep. But the damage was done. My bright, confident boy had been replaced by a frightened shadow of himself. As for me, I threw myself into work, but my mind was always churning, always planning. I knew that direct confrontation wouldn't work. Victor would just laugh it off. My parents would dismiss anything I said. If I wanted justice, if I wanted them to truly understand what they had done, I needed to be smarter. I needed to be strategic. But I didn't know where to start. I had no money, no connections, no power. I was exactly what Victor had called me, nobody. That's when I met Mr. Ben. He was an elderly man, probably in his 70s, with sharp eyes and a kind smile. He lived in my apartment building, and we would occasionally exchange pleasantries in the elevator or the mailroom. One evening, about a month after the incident, I was sitting on the building's small patio area, just trying to catch my breath after another exhausting day. Leo was inside doing homework, and I had exactly 15 minutes to myself before I needed to start dinner. Mr. Ben came out and sat down on the bench nearby. He didn't say anything at first, just sat there watching the sunset. Then, quietly, he spoke. I couldn't help but overhear what happened at your parents' house that night. I was there visiting my old friend George next door. I stepped outside for some air, and I heard everything through the window. I tensed, expecting judgment or unwanted advice. But he continued. What they did to your boy? What they let your brother do? That was unconscionable. I've been a lawyer for 40 years, and I've seen a lot of cruelty, but watching a family destroy one of their own like that, it never gets easier to witness. I felt tears prick my eyes. I don't know what to do. I admitted. I want them to understand what they did. I want them to feel even a fraction of what Leo felt. But I don't have any power. I don't have money or connections or anything they respect. Mr. Ben smiled, and there was something almost predatory about it. Power isn't just about money, Sarah. Power is about information, timing, and understanding human nature. Your brother is successful, but men like him always have vulnerabilities. They cut corners. They make enemies. They assume they're untouchable. And that assumption is what makes them weak. He pulled out a business card and handed it to me. I'm retired now, but I still have resources. Friends in various places. Access to records. If you're serious about making them understand, I can help you. But you need to be sure. Revenge isn't just about anger. It's about patience and precision. I took the card. I'm sure, I said. What happened next changed everything. Over the next few weeks, Mr. Ben became my unlikely mentor. We would meet in the evenings after Leo was asleep, and he would ask me questions. What did I know about Victor's business? Who were his associates? What were my parents' social circles? At first, I thought I didn't know anything useful. But Mr. Ben showed me how to piece together information from casual conversations, social media posts, and public records. He taught me to listen differently, to pay attention to what people weren't saying as much as what they were. He showed me how to research quietly, how to gather information without leaving traces. It felt like I was learning a new language, the language of strategy and careful planning. But the real breakthrough came when Mr. Ben started digging into Victor's business practices. He had connections with some of his former colleagues, people who could access public filings, court records, and business registrations. What they found was shocking. Victor's real estate success was built on a foundation of fraud, intimidation, and exploitation. He had cheated small contractors out of their payments by threatening them with expensive legal battles they couldn't afford. He had falsified documents to secure loans. He had used shell companies to hide assets and avoid taxes. The list went on, but there was a problem. Most of this information, while unethical, existed in gray areas of the law. It would be difficult to prosecute. And Victor had expensive lawyers who specialized in making problems disappear. We needed something more. Something that would not only expose Victor but destroy his reputation completely. Mr. Ben had another idea. He introduced me to someone who would become instrumental in everything that followed. Her name was Maria, and she ran the community center 2 blocks from my apartment. I had taken Leo there once or twice for their free after-school programs, but I hadn't really gotten to know Maria. She was in her 50s, sharp as a tack, with a no-nonsense attitude and a reputation for getting things done. Mr. Ben arranged for us to meet for coffee. Maria looked me over with assessing eyes and then smiled. Ben tells me, "You're looking for a change," she said. "He also tells me you're a hard worker who doesn't give up easily." "I am," I confirmed, unsure where this was going. "I need someone to manage the community kitchen program," she continued. "It's a big job. You'd be coordinating volunteers, handling food distribution, working with local businesses for donations. The pay isn't great, but it comes with something money can't buy: respect, visibility, a platform." I didn't understand at first why this mattered, but Mr. Ben explained it to me later. If I wanted to take down Victor, I needed to build myself up first. I needed credibility, connections, and moral authority. Working for the community center would give me all 3. I accepted the position, and my life began to change in ways I never expected. The work was hard, often overwhelming, but it was also meaningful. I met people from all walks of life: business owners who donated food, volunteers who gave their time, families who needed help. And slowly, carefully, I built a network of relationships. People started to know my name. They saw how hard I worked, how much I cared. Leo started coming to the center after school, and I watched him slowly come back to life as he participated in art classes and made friends. But there was resistance too. The first few months were brutal. Some of the established volunteers resented me as an outsider. There were budget problems, logistical nightmares, and days when I wanted to quit. I would come home exhausted, collapse on the couch, and question whether any of this was worth it. Mr. Ben kept me focused. "Every setback is a lesson," he would tell me. "Every challenge is preparing you for what comes next." Victor spent his whole life taking shortcuts. You're going to beat him by doing the hard work he never bothered to do. And slowly, things started to improve. I implemented new systems for tracking donations and distributing food more efficiently. I reached out to local businesses and convinced them to partner with us. I organized community events that brought people together. Within 6 months, the kitchen program had doubled in size and impact. Within a year, we were feeding hundreds of families every week, and the community center had become a hub of activity and hope. Maria pulled me aside one day and told me something I'll never forget. "You know what makes you different, Sarah. Most people talk about making a difference. You actually do it. You show up. You work. You care. That's rare. That's powerful." Meanwhile, Mr. Ben was doing his own digging. He discovered that Victor's business success wasn't quite as clean as it appeared. My brother had been cutting corners, exploiting loopholes, and in some cases, outright defrauding smaller suppliers and contractors. Nothing huge. Nothing that would automatically land him in jail, but enough to seriously damage his reputation if it came to light. But Victor was also unraveling. His financial problems were getting worse. The expensive lifestyle he flaunted was funded by debt and questionable deals. Several of his business partners were starting to ask uncomfortable questions. He was drinking more, making reckless decisions, and burning bridges with people he needed. Mr. Ben showed me documents, emails, testimonies from people Victor had wronged. We built a file, piece by piece, and waited for the right moment. But I realized we needed more than just evidence of fraud. We needed Victor to expose himself, to show the community who he really was. That moment came 6 months later, but not in the way I expected. Victor's company hit a crisis. A major deal collapsed, leaving him exposed to lawsuits and creditor claims. He needed help, and fast. More importantly, he needed to rehabilitate his image. That's when my mother called me for the first time since that awful night. Her voice was clipped and cold, like she was doing me a favor by even speaking to me. "Sarah, we need to talk," she said. "Victor is going through a difficult time right now, and he needs family support. We expect you to put aside your little grudge and help him get a position at that community center you're working at. It would look good for his public image." I almost laughed. After everything they had done, after the way they had treated Leo, they actually expected me to help Victor. The audacity was stunning, but I saw the opportunity. This was the opening I had been waiting for. "I'll think about it," I said neutrally, and hung up. 3 days later, all 3 of them showed up at the community center. I was in my office when Maria buzzed me to say I had visitors. I already knew who it was. Mr. Ben had prepared me for this moment. We had discussed various scenarios, different ways this conversation might go, and how I should respond to each one. They walked in like they owned the place. Victor in his expensive suit, looking slightly less polished than usual. There were bags under his eyes, and his confident swagger seemed forced. My mother in her designer clothes, her face tight with disapproval at the modest surroundings. My father trailing behind, wearing his usual expression of vague disappointment. "Sarah," my mother began without preamble, "we don't have time for games. Victor needs a position here, something suitable for someone of his stature. Maybe a director role or consultant position, something that will look good on his resume and show the community he's committed to giving back." I leaned back in my chair and smiled. "That's interesting," I said, "because we don't actually have any open director positions, and our consultant roles require extensive experience in nonprofit management, which Victor doesn't have." Victor scoffed. "I'm a successful businessman. I think I can handle whatever make-work program you've got going on here. How hard can it be to hand out food to people? Harder than you think," I replied calmly. "It requires empathy, patience, and genuine care for others. Qualities I'm not sure you possess." His face reddened. "Are you really going to hold that dinner over my head forever? I was teaching your kid a lesson. Maybe if you taught him properly, I wouldn't have had to step in. You forced my 8-year-old son to scrub your shoes with his own clothes while you laughed at him," I said, my voice deadly quiet. "That wasn't teaching. That was cruelty. And yes, I am going to remember that. Forever." My father slammed his hand on my desk. "Don't you dare talk to us like that. After everything we've done for you, the least you can do is show some gratitude and help your brother. This is about family." "Everything you've done for me," I repeated, letting the words hang in the air. "You mean like paying for my education?" "Oh wait, you didn't do that. You paid for Victor's." "You mean like supporting me when I became a single mother?" "Oh wait, you called me a disappointment and a burden." "You mean like treating my son with love and kindness?" "Oh wait, you let Victor humiliate him." My mother's face flushed. "That's ancient history. Stop living in the past. Victor has apologized." "He hasn't. Actually," I said. "Not once. Not to me. And certainly not to Leo." The room was silent for a moment. Then Victor laughed. That same dismissive sound. You're really going to hold that over us forever. Fine. I'm sorry. There. Happy now. Now give me the position I need. I stood up slowly and walked to my office door, opening it wide. Get out. I said. What my mother looked genuinely shocked. I said, get out. This is my office. In my workplace. And I'm asking you to leave. If Victor wants a position here, he can apply like everyone else. Fill out an application. Submit a resume. Go through the interview process. But I can tell you right now, based on his qualifications and character, he won't be hired for any leadership position. You can't be serious. Victor said. You need us more than we need you. I smiled. That's where you're wrong. I don't need you at all. In fact, my life has been significantly better since I stopped subjecting myself and my son to your abuse. Victor's face turned red. You're nobody. You're a single mother working at a charity kitchen. You have no power here. Don't I? I gestured out the window to the busy community center, filled with people. All these people know me. They trust me. They respect me. Can you say the same about anyone in your life? That hit a nerve. Victor's jaw clenched. You think you're better than me now. You think running this little charity makes you special. No. I said. I don't think I'm better than you. I know I am. Because I build people up instead of tearing them down. I help instead of hurt. And when people look at me, they see someone who cares. When they look at you, they see someone who uses people and throws them away. My father stepped forward. You listen here. Young lady. No, I interrupted. You listen. For years, I accepted your abuse. I accepted being the scapegoat. I accepted being told I was worthless and watching you praise Victor for doing the bare minimum. But I'm done. And more than that, I'm in a position to show this community exactly who you all really are. Victor's eyes narrowed. Are you threatening us? I'm just stating facts. I said. I pulled out a folder from my desk drawer. The one Mr. Playslash. Ben had helped me compile. Inside were copies of contracts, emails, testimonies from people Victor had cheated. I slid it across the desk. Take a look. Victor grabbed the folder and flipped through it. His hands started shaking. Where did you get this? This is confidential. Funny how things become public record when people file complaints. I said. Funny how eager people are to talk when they realize they're not the only ones you've wronged. My mother grabbed the folder from Victor and paled as she read, This is slander. We'll sue you. It's not slander if it's true. I replied. And I have witnesses, documents, and a retired lawyer who's very eager to see justice served. This was the moment. The moment I had been building toward for months, but I didn't want to just destroy Victor. That would be too simple. Too clean. I wanted him to destroy himself. I wanted him to understand what it felt like to be powerless, to be humiliated, to be forced to do things that made him feel small. But here's the thing, I continued. I'm not interested in destroying you. Not yet. Anyway, I'm interested in justice, in fairness, in making sure that the community sees who you really are and has a chance to respond accordingly. Then what do you want? My father demanded. I want Victor to understand what it feels like to be at someone else's mercy. So here's my offer. Victor can volunteer here. We have an opening for someone to handle kitchen cleanup, washing dishes, mopping floors, taking out trash, cleaning bathrooms. It's honest work. Hard work? The kind of work that builds character. Victor's jaw dropped. You're insane. I'm not doing manual labor. Then I guess the business community will be very interested to read about your creative accounting practices. I'm sure your remaining clients would love to know how you've been cutting corners and exploiting people. I'm sure the bank that gave you those loans would love to know about the false information you provided. You can't do this, my mother said, her voice shaking. This is extortion. No, I corrected. Extortion is illegal and involves demanding money or property. I'm simply offering your son an opportunity to rebuild his character through community service. Whether he takes it or not is entirely his choice. But either way, the truth about his business practices will come out. The question is whether he'll have any goodwill left in this community when it does. Victor looked at my parents, then back at me. His carefully constructed mask of superiority was cracking. His hands were shaking. And for the first time in my life, I saw something in his eyes that looked like fear. "Fine," he finally said through gritted teeth. "I'll do it. But this isn't over." "Oh, it's definitely not over." I agreed. "But from now on, the rules are different. You don't get to waltz into my life and make demands. You don't get to treat me or my son like we're worthless. If you want to be part of this community, you'll do it on my terms. And Victor, you start tomorrow, 7 a.m. sharp. Wear clothes you don't mind getting dirty." They left, and I sat down, my legs shaking with adrenaline. Maria came in a moment later with a cup of tea and a huge grin. "That was magnificent," she said. "Remind me never to cross you." But I barely heard her, because even though I had just won a major victory, I knew this was only the beginning. Victor wasn't the type to accept defeat gracefully. He would fight back. He would scheme, and he would try to find a way to turn this situation to his advantage. I needed to be ready for whatever came next. Victor started working at the community center the next day, and it was immediately clear that this wasn't going to be as simple as I had hoped. He showed up on time. I'll give him that. But he did so with a smirk on his face and an attitude that suggested he thought this was all a joke. He wore designer jeans and an expensive button-down shirt, completely inappropriate for kitchen work. Within the first hour, his clothes were stained and dirty, and his smirk had faded. But what I hadn't anticipated was how Victor would try to manipulate the situation. He started making friends with some of the volunteers, playing up his fall from grace story and painting himself as the victim of a vindictive sister. He would laugh and joke with people while doing the bare minimum of work, creating a persona of a good-natured guy who was being unfairly punished. Some people bought it. I heard whispers from volunteers who felt sorry for him, who thought maybe I was being too hard on him. It frustrated me beyond words. Here was Victor, the same man who had humiliated my son, using his charm and manipulation to rewrite the narrative, but Maria saw what he was doing. She pulled me aside one day and said, "Let him play his games. Give him enough rope to hang himself. People who are good at performing eventually drop the mask. Be patient." She was right. About 2 weeks into his volunteer work, the cracks started to show. Victor snapped at a volunteer who asked him to mop the floor again because he had missed several spots. He complained loudly about the work, forgetting that several people within earshot were doing the same tasks without complaint. He made a snide comment about the food we were serving, calling it slop, not realizing that one of the recipients was standing nearby. Word spread quickly. The sympathy he had been building evaporated. People started to see the real Victor, the entitled, arrogant man who looked down on everyone around him, and I did nothing but watch and document. Meanwhile, my parents tried a different approach. They started showing up at the community center regularly, not to help Victor, but to demand special treatment for themselves. They wanted Leo enrolled in premium programs for free. They wanted reserved parking spaces. They wanted recognition for being the family of a volunteer, as if Victor's forced labor was somehow a charitable contribution. Each time, I calmly explained our policies. No exceptions. No special privileges. Everyone was treated equally. And each time, they became more frustrated and angry. The breaking point came at a community meeting 3 months into Victor's time at the center. We were hosting a town hall about expanding our services, and many local business owners and community leaders were present. It was a big deal, an opportunity to showcase what we had accomplished and to drum up support for future initiatives. My mother made a scene. She stood up in the middle of the presentation and loudly accused me of discriminating against my own family. She claimed I was using my position to punish them, that I was petty and vindictive, that I had turned my back on family values. Her voice carried through the room, and everyone turned to stare. For a moment, I felt that old fear rise up, the fear of being judged, of being seen as the problem, of being blamed for destroying the family. But then I looked at Leo, sitting in the front row with his art class, and I remembered why I was doing this. I remembered that night, and I remembered my promise. I let her finish. Then I stood up, calm and composed. I walked to the front of the room and pulled out my phone. I connected it to the speakers and played a recording. It was from that terrible night, the audio I had captured when things started going wrong. Victor's voice came through clearly, telling Leo to get on his knees, calling us trash, laughing at my son's tears. My mother's voice agreeing, saying Leo needed to learn his place. My father's voice supporting it all. The room went completely silent. You could hear people shifting uncomfortably in their seats. Some put their hands over their mouths in shock. I saw several people look at my mother with expressions of disgust and horror. Even the business owners who had previously been friendly with my family were appalled. "This is what you call family values," I said quietly. "This is what you did to an 8-year-old child. So when you talk about discrimination and unfair treatment, remember that you had no problem discriminating against your own grandson. You had no problem treating him like he was less than human. All I'm doing is holding you to the same standards I hold everyone else. Equal treatment. Fair policies. No special privileges based on who you're related to." My mother's face was white. She tried to speak, but no words came out. My father stood up, looking like he wanted to say something. But Maria intervened. "I think you've said enough. Martha, we've heard the truth now. I suggest you leave before you embarrass yourself further." They left, but the damage was done to them, not to me. That night, someone in the meeting posted the recording online, with context about what had happened. It spread like wildfire through our community. Local social media groups exploded with discussions. People were outraged. Victor's remaining business contacts started distancing themselves. My parents were quietly asked to step down from several social clubs and charitable boards. Victor's business collapsed within 2 weeks. Clients canceled contracts. Partners pulled out of deals. The bank called in loans. Everything he had built, all the success he had flaunted, vanished almost overnight. And this time, my parents couldn't bail him out because their own reputation was in tatters. But here's where things took an unexpected turn. I thought Victor would rage, fight back, maybe even try to physically confront me. Instead, he broke. Completely and utterly broke. He stopped showing up to work at the community center. I heard through the grapevine that he had locked himself in his apartment, refusing to answer calls or see anyone. His expensive car was repossessed. His luxury apartment was foreclosed on. He moved back in with my parents, sleeping in his childhood bedroom like a failure. Part of me felt satisfied. This was what I wanted. Right to see him lose everything. To feel the powerlessness and shame that Leo had felt. But another part of me felt empty, hollow, because revenge, even justified revenge, doesn't fill the hole that trauma creates. It doesn't undo the damage. Leo still had nightmares. Leo still sometimes flinched when people raised their voices. The scar was still there. Mr. Ben noticed my conflicted feelings. We met for coffee one afternoon, and he looked at me with those sharp, knowing eyes. "You're wondering if this was worth it," he said. "You're wondering if destroying them has actually helped Leo." "Has it?" I asked. "That's not for me to answer," he replied. "But I'll tell you this. What you've done is ensure that Victor can never hurt Leo again. You've shown Leo that actions have consequences, that standing up for yourself matters, that he doesn't have to accept abuse. Those are powerful lessons. Whether the revenge itself was worth it, that's something only you can decide." I sat with that for a while. And then, about 4 months after Victor's business collapsed, something happened that I never expected. Victor showed up at the community center. But he looked different. He had lost weight. His clothes were cheap and ill-fitting, and there was something in his eyes that hadn't been there before. Genuine humility. Or maybe just deep exhaustion. He asked to speak with me privately. We went to my office, and he sat across from my desk, not meeting my eyes. "I'm not here to ask for anything," he said quietly. "I just wanted to talk." I waited, saying nothing. "I've had a lot of time to think," he continued, "about what I did, about who I was, about how I treated people, especially you and Leo. And I need you to know that I'm sorry. Really, truly sorry. Not because I lost everything, though that's part of it, but because I'm starting to understand the damage I caused. I'm starting to see the person I became. And I'm horrified. This wasn't the apology I had imagined during those angry nights after the incident. It wasn't dramatic or theatrical. It was quiet and broken and almost painful to hear. "I destroyed my nephew," he said, his voice cracking. "I destroyed him for no reason other than to feel powerful. And I can't take that back. I can't undo it. But I want you to know that I see it now. I see what I did. I looked at him for a long time. What do you want from me? Victor. Nothing, he said. I don't deserve anything from you. I just wanted you to know that you were right. About everything. I was cruel and pathetic and hollow. And losing everything has shown me that all the money and success in the world doesn't mean anything if you're a terrible person. I wanted to feel triumphant in that moment. But I didn't. I just felt tired. Your apology doesn't fix what you did to Leo, I said. It doesn't erase his nightmares or his fear. Words are easy. Victor. Change is hard. I know, he said. And I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted to be honest with you. He stood up to leave. But then he paused at the door. Maria told me you might have an opening for a janitor position. A real position. Not volunteer work. I need a job. And I'm willing to do whatever it takes. I'm willing to start at the bottom. I'm willing to work for minimum wage. I'm willing to prove that I can be different. This was the moment I had been waiting for. The ultimate humiliation. Victor, the golden child, begging for a minimum wage janitor job from his despised sister. I could have said no. I could have kicked him while he was down. I could have made him beg and grovel and feel every ounce of the humiliation Leo had felt. But I thought about Leo. I thought about the kind of person I wanted him to become. The kind of lessons I wanted him to learn. Did I want him to learn that revenge is a never-ending cycle? Or did I want him to learn that people can change? That redemption is possible. That strength sometimes means knowing when to extend mercy. You can have the position, I said finally, but you'll be on probation. Any hint of your old behavior? Any disrespect toward anyone here? And you're gone. No second chances. Understood, he said. And Victor, I added, you're going to apologize to Leo. A real apology. In person. When he's ready to hear it. And you're going to live with the fact that he may never forgive you. I understand, he said quietly. Victor started working as a janitor at the community center. And to my surprise, he actually seemed to mean what he had said. He showed up early, worked hard, and kept his head down. He didn't try to make friends or rebuild his image. He just worked. When people asked him about his past, he was honest about his failures and didn't make excuses. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, something changed in him, or maybe it was always there, buried under years of entitlement and cruelty, and losing everything had simply stripped away the mask. I don't know if people truly change, or if they just reveal different parts of themselves under different circumstances. My parents took longer to come around. For months, they stayed away, nursing their wounded pride. But eventually, financial reality set in. My father's investments had been tied to Victor's failing business, and they lost a significant portion of their savings. They downsized to a smaller house, sold their expensive cars, and had to adjust to a more modest lifestyle. They started coming to the community center too, not to demand special treatment anymore, but to volunteer, quietly, humbly, without fanfare. They folded napkins, sorted donations, and helped serve meals. They didn't try to talk to Leo at first, just watched him from a distance, with expressions that might have been regret. One day, about a year after everything had fallen apart, my mother approached me while I was organizing supplies. She looked older, grayer, smaller somehow. Sarah, she said quietly, may I speak with you? I nodded, bracing myself for another confrontation. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, she said, her voice shaking. I know I failed you as a mother. I failed Leo as a grandmother. I let my pride and my favoritism blind me to what was really important. And I'm sorry. I know those words aren't enough, but they're all I have. I looked at her, this woman who had made my childhood miserable, who had stood by while my son was humiliated, and I felt something unexpected. Not forgiveness? Exactly. But a loosening of the anger that had been coiled tight in my chest for so long. I don't know if I can forgive you, I said honestly. The damage you caused is too deep, but I can accept your apology and move forward. That's the best I can offer right now. She nodded, tears streaming down her face. That's more than I deserve. Over the next year, a strange new normal emerged. Victor continued working at the center, slowly earning back a small measure of respect through consistent, humble work. My parents continued volunteering, maintaining a respectful distance from Leo and me, but always there, always helping. We weren't a family in the traditional sense. Too much had been broken for that. But we were something. A cautious coexistence built on hard-learned lessons and clear boundaries. The real triumph, though, was Leo. My beautiful, resilient boy gradually came back to life. The nightmares became less frequent. His drawings became colorful again. He made close friends at the center and started to believe in his own worth. He still remembered what happened. Of course, trauma doesn't just disappear, but it no longer defined him. One afternoon, about 2 years after that terrible dinner, Leo came to me with a question. "Mom," he said, "do you think Uncle Victor is really sorry?" "I don't know," I answered honestly. "I think he's trying to be a better person. Whether that's because he's genuinely changed or because he lost everything and has no other choice, I can't say. But what matters is that he can never hurt you again." I made sure of that. "Do you think I should forgive him?" Leo asked. I knelt down to look him in the eyes. "That's entirely up to you. Sweetheart, forgiveness isn't something you owe anyone. It's something you give if and when you're ready. And if you're never ready, that's okay too." He thought about that for a moment. "I think maybe I want to hear what he has to say." "His apology. Are you sure?" I asked. He nodded. "Yeah, I'm stronger now. I can handle it." So I arranged a meeting, with a therapist present to make sure Leo felt safe. Victor came in looking nervous, almost sick with anxiety. He sat across from Leo, and for a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then Victor began. "Leo," he said, his voice barely above a whisper, "what I did to you was unforgivable. I made you feel small and worthless and afraid. And there's no excuse for that. I was cruel because I felt powerful. And that's the worst kind of cruelty. I don't expect you to forgive me. I just need you to know that I'm sorry, and that what I did was about my own failures, not about you. You are a good kid. You always were. And I was the one who was wrong." Leo sat quietly, processing this. Then he said something that surprised all of us. "I forgive you," he said. "Not because you deserve it, but because I don't want to carry this anger anymore. But I don't want to be close to you. I don't want you to be my uncle like before. I just want you to be someone who hurt me once and then tried to be better." Victor nodded, tears streaming down his face. "That's more than I hoped for," he whispered, and that was it. No dramatic reconciliation. No perfect healing moment. Just an honest exchange between two people trying to move forward from trauma. It wasn't a Hollywood ending, but it was real. Today, 3 years after that awful night, life is good. Leo is 11 now, confident and creative. With a room full of colorful drawings and a group of close friends, he still remembers what happened. But it doesn't define him. He learned that he has a mother who will fight for him, a community that values him, and his own inner strength. As for me, I'm no longer the insecure, apologetic woman who accepted scraps of affection from people who didn't deserve my loyalty. I'm respected in this community. I've built something meaningful. I've shown Leo that you don't have to accept mistreatment, that setting boundaries isn't selfish, and that sometimes the best revenge is living well and refusing to let cruel people dim your light. My parents are still around, still helping at the center in their quiet way. We're not close, and we never will be. Too much damage was done, but there's a tentative peace, built on clear boundaries and mutual respect, or at least the appearance of it. Victor works full-time at the center now. He'll never be the golden boy again, never have the wealth or status he once enjoyed, but he's learning what it means to contribute, to be part of something larger than himself. Whether his transformation is genuine or just pragmatic survival, only time will tell. The other day, Leo and I were painting a mural on the community center wall. A bright, joyful scene of people from all walks of life coming together. He stepped back, admired his work, and then looked at me with those thoughtful eyes. "Mom," he said, "that night at Grandma's house, when Uncle Victor, I used to think I should have done something different. Like it was my fault. It wasn't your fault, I said firmly. None of it was your fault. I know that now, he replied. Because I watched you. You didn't just get mad. You changed everything. You made sure it could never happen again. You protected me. I pulled him into a hug. My heart full. That's what mothers do. I said, we protect our children. Even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. He hugged me back. And in that moment, I knew that every difficult decision, every uncomfortable confrontation, every strategic move had been worth it. Not for revenge, though that had been satisfying, but for this, for Leo knowing his worth, for Leo understanding that no one gets to make him feel small. The best revenge isn't about destruction. It's about transformation. It's about refusing to let someone else's cruelty define your story. It's about building a life so full of purpose and joy that the people who tried to break you become irrelevant. They become footnotes in a story where you're the hero, not the victim. And that's exactly what I did. I kept my promise to my son. I kept my promise to myself. And I learned that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is refuse to play by someone else's rules and write your own ending instead. So here's my question for you. Have you ever had to make the difficult choice to walk away from toxic people, even when they were family? Have you ever had to choose your own peace over other people's expectations? Drop your story in the comments below. I want to hear about your journey, your struggles, your victories. And if this story resonated with you, if it reminded you that you deserve respect and dignity, no matter what anyone else says, hit that like button. Subscribe to hear more stories about standing up for yourself and reclaiming your power. Share this with someone who needs to hear that they're not alone, that it's okay to set boundaries, and that choosing yourself isn't selfish. It's survival. Remember, you teach people how to treat you, and sometimes, the greatest lesson you can give is showing them what happens when they forget that you're worthy of respect. Thank you for listening to my story. Now go out there and write your own.